those who submit and trust in Jesus Christ find salvation that is lasting, find satisfaction that is true and deep and eternal. And yet, the world in all of its sins are addicted like the Egyptians, addicted to the idols that have no power to save or satisfy. The inability of idols, the inability of sins, the inability of ourselves to save is put on extreme display when God judges us according to our idols. Think of Hapi at this moment. Think of Hapi, the god of the Nile. He is here shown as absolutely powerless. Look at the part of the story where it says that the magicians in verse 22 did the exact same thing. Verse 22, the Egyptian gods who had inspired the magicians and the priests of Pharaoh, his Pharaoh, worried by what he sees and thinking, obviously, is this proof that Moses' God, that Aaron's God is the one true God? Is he overcoming Hapi at this moment? And he turns to his magicians and what's their solution? It's pretty funny. Instead of saying, yeah, we've got control over this, we'll undo the Nile blood, which would have been the solution, they just take more of Pharaoh's drinking water and turn that into blood as well. Good job, magicians. I guess you showed them. So here's Pharaoh, his heart hardened because the magicians are able to replicate, at least in appearance. I would believe that in fact the demons were allowed at this point the power to turn the water into true blood as God had done, because it simply says the very same thing by their secret arts. And the effect here was that halfway through verse 22, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. He would not listen to them as the Lord had said. He turned and went into his house, and he did not take even this to heart. Why? Because as much as this struck at the heart of all of Egypt and their economy, and while of course this now affects every Egyptian, there's not an Egyptian in the land that isn't aware of this issue now, because even in their bowls in their homes, as they were mid-pour, blood started coming out. This was a miracle. Everybody, that is, except for Pharaoh. Like, at least about the snakes. Remember Moses' staff that turned into a cobra that gobbled up all the magicians? At least that story he could have spun, he could have lied about, he could have just not published to the people through his mainstream media. This he cannot avoid. Everybody is aware of it, but what does he do? He turns aside, goes into his home, sits in his palace, and commands his servants to go and dig up water along the canals of the Nile in order to get him water. He's able to disassociate here. He hardens his heart against God, and he goes back into his palace. Likely he doesn't reappear for the full time of what verse 25 tells us, the full 7 days that passed while the Nile was filled with coagulating, thickening, rotting human blood.